Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Good. All right, well, I'm Austin. I'm super excited to be here speaking at my first Share. Really excited to talk to you guys today. What I really want to talk about is the power of technical SEO. And with all the other cool things that we're doing in the industry, oftentimes technical SEO can kind of get brushed under the rug and ignored a little bit. So what we'll go through today, I'll give a quick intro about myself. I'll talk a little bit about the misconceptions of technical SEO that we're seeing in the industry today. Give you guys a case study of when things went wrong for us, give a case study of when things went right, and then finalize with some key takeaways. So about me, I have 8+ years in the digital marketing business, specifically in SEO. I have a lot more experience in World of Warcraft leveling, if you want to talk about that afterwards. I do have experience in-house and agency side. As Leo just mentioned, I am back on the agency side with Resolution Media. Check out, there's a 12 o'clock demo. They're doing some really cool stuff, building a tool called Story Connect. Check that out if you have time at 12 o'clock today. But what I want to talk about is a little bit of the work I did over at Wiley, and to give you guys some context, Wiley is a 200-plus-year-old traditional publishing company in the print business, and they are shifting to a digital-first mindset. So the CEO is really pushing heavy on digital-first. So we want to make sure that we're ready to achieve results from a technical standpoint. So one of the things I want to talk about first is some of the misconceptions around technical SEO. Oftentimes, you hear things like technical SEO is superficial, it's cosmetic, it's just a checklist that we can say we delivered something to a client. It often gets referred to as makeup for some reason as well a lot. People have a belief that technical SEO doesn't drive big wins. Also, there's a lot of feedback from clients or web developers that, hey, we don't see any apparent issues with our site. We don't need to focus on technical SEO. Let's focus on the new shiny object that's out there in the marketing space. And hopefully we'll debunk a few of these myths today. So my philosophy around this is, if you think of your website as a house, technical SEO is really the foundation. You have to make sure you solidify your foundation and make sure there's no cracks in it that could end up hurting you in the long run. Without that strong base, you can eventually crumble, get penalized, a lot of bad things can happen. And one of the things we found out at Wiley is we had awesome content. Best in class, best in industry content, but we were a little bit lacking from our technical SEO perspective. So what I want to talk about first is a bad case study, right? Always start with the bad. So when technical SEO wasn't considered. So one of our brands decided to take their book and make a digital product out of it. They wanted to meet customers online. However, when they were pushing this idea, the search team, the SEO team, even our user experience team weren't a part of the process. They wanted to move very quickly to get a digital product up online. And what we saw was some pretty bad things. The first thing we saw was customer feedback. So we had surveys set up, we talked to a few customers, and the use cases showed that they weren't having the best experience from a functional standpoint on the site. It was hard for them to find the content they want when they wanted it. So a lot of issues in that area. From an SEO standpoint, we found that the product application was built in a certain way that it wasn't indexable. So if you take a look at the screenshot, only one page was actually indexed. And obviously you can't drive traffic if you're not, organically you can't drive traffic if you're not included in the index. So here are a few 4 technical SEO issues that are a little bit more complex that I just want to briefly talk about and give sample solutions for them in case you guys are running into similar issues yourself. The first we just mentioned was around inaccessible pages. So what happened is we were using an Ajax setup with a SPA single page application. So essentially you have one page and all the content was being pulled in different areas. While this was a good user experience, it was a quick loading website, what we found is search engines can't crawl and access all of that additional content. And that led to what we saw on the previous screenshot with our inability to be indexed. That's a big problem. No index, no rankings, no visibility, no traffic. There are a couple solutions here. One is progressive enhancement. Think about progressive enhancement, and this is Google's now recommended solution. Think about progressive enhancement as starting out with the basics when you build a website, very simplistic, and then progressively adding on enhancements with the different languages and tools to increase or enhance a user's experience. So start very simplistic so that search engines can crawl, decipher your content, and then add on all the bells and whistles as you go on. Secondary solution is something called pre-rendered HTML snapshots. Essentially, you give a HTML snapshot directly to the search engine so they can process and understand what's on your site. This was Google's recommended solution back in 2009. It was actually deprecated in October of 2015, but it does still work. We tested that as a solution. Progressive enhancement wasn't an option for us in terms of the way the site was built, but we did test this solution out and we were able to get pages indexed, which was really good for us. The second issue we ran into was a subscription wall. So even if we did have a full product library list of indexable pages, what we were doing was throwing a subscription wall in front of everything, literally everything. You get to the site and any page you go to, you're seeing a subscription wall. Pay us money or we don't give you content. And obviously it's important for business, but we have to understand the balance between traffic acquisition through organic search and the ability to drive subscriptions. So there are a few solutions for this. One is a Google program called First Click Free. Essentially, what Google allows you to do is any user that comes from a Google property, whether it be search, web, news, etc., can access that first piece of content on your site for free. We'll render the full content for them. Any subsequent clicks will result in that subscription wall. So it's kind of a balance of allowing search engines to fully crawl and index and rank your website while also still metering the user in such a way that you're still able to drive subscriptions. So a couple of other SEO issues that we had a little bit more around structural. One was content grouping. And I mentioned this at the beginning. The way in which we grouped content was not how users come to expect the experience online. So just taking a book and throwing it into a digital atmosphere wasn't what the customers wanted. And we saw some SEO issues stem from this in terms of pages were super thin. Talking about having one sentence on a page, having to click, see a corresponding image, having to click, see another paragraph of content. And obviously this didn't match users' expectations. Solution here is really using data intelligence, keyword research to understand how your users want to digest that content, how they want it grouped. So we did a lot of work around keyword theming to help build out the right way from a digital aspect to group the content together. And that goes into the fourth issue around URL structure. So obviously because of our Ajax SPA setup, we didn't have a search engine friendly structure. Back to the previous example, some of our really important content was like 7 to 9 levels deep. You can imagine how bad of an experience that is for users, but also the inability for search engines to crawl and access that type of content. So that's a bad case study, right? That's not good. But what I think was really helpful in terms of moving the organization forward is kind of this leading to search being a part of the process for us. Not only technical SEO, but our user experience designs. We realized as a business that you can't just throw a product or traditional publishing, traditional book, throw it up online and expect results. So this led to much, much better processes and workflows in terms of having the SEO team and other important digital teams at the forefront driving strategy rather than reacting to something that was already built. So let's get to a good case study. So Dummies. Everybody here knows the Dummies brand. Dummies got by in the digital space because they're great at generating content, really great at it. They have a lot of brand equity, so a lot of domain authority. So they got by on that sort of build content and just keep going strategy for most of their time online. But what happened in 2014, the site was actually penalized, lost 40% of its traffic for a period of 5 months. And that's when the team started to realize, okay, we need to pay more attention to this whole search thing from a holistic perspective, not just our content strategy. And what happened here is it kind of started to drive a proactive mindset instead of a reactive, right? We don't want to just get penalized and have to react to that. We want to be proactive in terms of driving strategies that can help us grow. So as a result of fixing this algorithmic penalty, we saw two areas of opportunity unfold for us. One, mobile get-in was coming out, if you guys remember that. So we wanted to be ready for mobile get-in. We didn't want to go through a similar penalization process. And then also Google Quick Answers was starting to become more prominent. So preparing for mobile get-in, what we found out is, yes, we had a mobile site, but it had a lot of issues, almost 18,000, which represents 35% of the content on our site. And there was many reasons that these issues happened. There was device detection problems. There was problems with search engine robots able to access appropriate mobile-specific files, all of that sort of stuff. Google Quick Answers. This was a big one for us. Dummies, if you think about it, is a learning business, so we operate in the how-to space, how to do something, right? And what we found out is we started to use BrightEdge's Data Cube tool and looked at how we were performing from a universal search perspective and found out we weren't performing at all. We had almost zero visibility. So that presented a real opportunity for us. And at the same time, we saw competitors were taking advantage of the space, right? We had strong traditional rankings when you think of the SERP in the traditional 10 blue link display, but once universal search started rolling out, and specifically answer box, which really impacted our niche, we started to lose a little bit of performance. So we were able to fix both for the price of one, and this technical SEO solution was pretty easy in terms of implementation compared to what we were talking about in the example of a bad case study. So what we found out is our mobile-specific CSS and JavaScript files, as well as all of our image content, were hosted on a separate domain from dummies.com, and it was being pulled into dummies.com for rendering. But on that separate domain, we had a robots.txt file that was blocking access to the entire content. So search engines weren't really able to process the JavaScript and the CSS files that were required for appropriate mobile rendering. So what we did is we had to adhere to corporate privacy policies on the separate domain. People didn't really know what was on it, so we couldn't just unleash search engine robots across the board. But we were able to write some allow statements to make sure that important media file types and JavaScript and CSS file types were allowed to be crawled by search engines. What do we see as a result of this? Conquering universal search. So the crying guy on the left, I wasn't lying, no universal search at the beginning. Once we implement this in August, we saw consistent growth over time. And of course, you've seen a lot of up and to the right charts today. Everybody's presenting awesome case studies. But the type of keywords that we were ranking here in universal search are highly searched stuff. I'm talking 50,000, 100,000 type of search volume keywords. So this represented a big improvement in terms of our business goals. So not only did we start to conquer universal search, which was a goal for us, we saw wins across the board. So visibility, overall visibility, we had an increase of 70,000 new keywords on page one in Google for Dummies.com year over year. That led to an increase in traffic, 21% increase, or over 25 million search visits. And ultimately, what the bosses cared about was ad revenue from a digital standpoint. And we increased our programmatic ad revenue by 43%, which killed all of our goals for the year. And one other big win that's not in this slide is when we presented this sort of case study and this sort of win to top-level management, it really kind of hit home for them that they have to invest in technical SEO and proper website design and setup. So as a result of this case study, to continue growth, we actually got top-level management to invest in a redesigned website on a different platform, which was more search engine friendly, and removed a lot of the limitations that were a result of our proprietary CMS. So that was ultimately the big win for us. So just to sum up with some key takeaways, don't forget about technical SEO. It still is critical to success. There's so much stuff out there with AMP and all this other stuff that you guys can be implementing and working on. Bit of advice, get involved early. We weren't involved in this particular project. We didn't even know it was happening, and it resulted in this kind of backlash in terms of process. So try to get involved as early as you can. It's easier to build something with a strong foundation rather than try to fix problems. Last, learn technical SEO. You don't have to be a master of JavaScript or anything like that, but you can understand the core concepts technical SEO provides to help grow your business. And last thing, I think this is a big point, is test things for yourself. I think we have a great industry, right? Everybody's sharing case studies, everybody's talking about philosophies, but from a technical SEO perspective, I've seen that decline a little bit. I feel like for the most part, people are waiting for a tweet from Google or a new case study to come out. I definitely encourage you to build your own site and test things out for yourself. I built a crappy little golf website, but it's kind of the best thing I've ever done. I've started testing, implementing AMP on it, all of that sort of stuff, which kind of helped build my skill set. And of course, always be crawling, always be checking for issues. I was going to wear my suit today, but I didn't get a chance to bring it in. That's it. Thank you, guys.